So I have, over the last 4 years, moved from where I was when I first dipped into relating and engaging from the perspective and the body of work around intractable conflict. And the thing that I have learned about it is, if you just imagine valleys, peaks and valleys, if you start up here at the peak, if you think about Mount Everest, is you can't stay up there long. There's not a lot of surface space, it's not safe. And in intractable conflict, there are dynamics that are continually pulling us in the direction of harmful and negative thoughts and behaviors. And so how do we overcome that? One is developing the ability to hold multiple perspectives. That requires heightened self-awareness and understanding. In very practical ways, it means having a plan before you engage in any conversation or dialogue to kind of tease out the hot spots or the points where you may need to pause or exit. When it comes to, let's say, your neighborhood, your neighbors, it could be the first step you do is take a walk. The experts say take a walk rather than jumping into dialogue. So having a strategy that allows you to get into relationship and build trust and navigate your way towards those tough conversations where you do have something to express and you do have something to illuminate and clarify and even make a request is important. There's a lot more I could say about intractable conflict and ways to address it that ladder up to the state and the national and even the global levels using AI and other forms of technology. But I think if for me, reorienting around that body of work was an escape hatch that allowed me to start doing both repair and the development work that was really been critical for me.
Thank you so much. And as we talk about both the personal and the collective, it brings me to accountability and then action. And, part of our title is history, and we often hear the phrase, history repeating itself. We've all heard that. And I say history doesn't repeat itself. Human beings repeat history. Because the agency has to be placed where it needs to be placed. And that is a space that we're talking about in terms of practical strategies. How do we, in the now, begin to think about, whether it be in our daily lives, in our workplaces, actual actions we can take to not only hold ourselves accountable, but the systems that perpetuate and reify racism. So maybe some thoughts about tools, knowledge being one, AI being one, recognizing harm, remedy, being in community for real, not happy that you're the only one in the room and closing the door, but then you want to say, I want to heal, I want our community to heal. Or as we were talking today about class, within the Black community, the haves and the have-nots. So what are some specific things that we need to do to not only talk it, but walk it?
Can I go first?
Yes.
I'm gonna jump up to the community level rather than addressing the individual level, because I've been so inspired by all that I've heard and all that I'm learning by being here. I attended one of the mayor's sessions earlier today, and the work that the different mayors and the different participants in P3 initiatives and efforts is just incredible. And the conversation we heard right before lunch with Ashley Bell and the other members of that panel was mind-blowing. And even going back to day one and the minister and what she spoke about, the things that are being done here in Brazil are incredible. And so on that level, what I would really like to see is an ability for us to build shared understanding around the same data sets and information sets. I'd love for us to get much better and more efficient and take our sense-making capabilities to the next level, and that would naturally unfold and enable us to coordinate much more effectively too. So those are two things that are really important to me.
Aria, Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I would build off of what you just said and what you said just before that around being able to hold different perspectives too. I think one of the most important things is being able to see, I may be positioned in X way, you may be positioned in Y way. That means that we have different vantage points on sort of what we can see in the system. And that may mean that we have different sets of information and different perspectives on what kind of what we need to do to move forward. But the reality is that we probably are aligned on where we're going, and we need many different ways of getting to where we're going. We need people in different roles. And so being able to understand your own role, play that role well, and then see, oh, you in a different role, and you're going to play that role well, and I respect you for that. And I want to be in relationship with you on that too. Like, I want to strategize with you. You're going to left flank, I'm at a right flank. You know, I think that to me is where we as a community start to operate in a much more healed place, because we know that the point of so much of the history was to disconnect us and to separate us. And so I just really think a lot about how to do that on a regular basis, how to see people who are in different places than me, but deeply know that let them know that I see them and that I respect them and honor them for being in that different place, and then start thinking, how do we work together?
And Tony, you always come back to this notion of vision. So we're all speaking about whether I'm a pressure point here and you're the pressure point here, we are not going to be divided. We refuse to be. So talk about the importance of vision and how we begin to move to this collective vision.
So, I think of vision as having some notion of an end objective in mind. What does success look like? What does happiness look like? What does feeling whole look like? And so with that, if we can't articulate that or have a vision of it, sometimes we jump right into taking some action, planning, doing something, but is it going to fulfill that objective at the end of the day? The two of you actually touched on what I was thinking, which is, like the UN with its 17 goals. Let's claim 3 goals, 5 goals, whatever they are, and anchor around that. And to your point, Aria, it's really about that ecosystem. So for each one of those goals, what does that ecosystem look like? Who are the players in that ecosystem? And you don't bring everybody that's like-minded like you. You bring different skill sets, different perspectives, different capabilities to that ecosystem to realize that end state vision. So to me, I think in roadmaps, that's the way I would probably put it together.
We're going to wrap up in just a few minutes because we want you to be part of this conversation. As you were speaking, Tony, it brought me to education. And UNESCO had education, inclusive education, a basic thing, right? But we know, as you all have said when we were preparing, that we need to be playing chess and not checkers, which means we need to connect the dots, because we know education is also directly correlated with what? Economics. And so to make it illegal in the US to educate enslaved people and even free people was not accidental, incidental. And so knowing this ecosystem, building on one another, knowing our history, but also trusting each other is viable and valuable. So Mark, when we think about vision, and you too are committed to that, how do we cultivate knowledge, shared knowledge, trust in this community, the beloved community?
I think the first simple answer is spend more time together in discovery, in conversation, get to know each other in the most comprehensive ways possible. But I'll go right back to technology. We're talking about vision. Wouldn't it be incredible if we were using technology so all of us can contribute our thoughts and our wishes and our aspirations for a shared vision that we could ultimately say was crafted and articulated as a community on the whole. So I think that there's some big thinking that we can do that would ultimately allow us to accelerate some of the needs that we've identified and some of the things that we have said that we would like to try and experiment with. I'm just going to go right back to finance and business models. I know this is a little bit of a windy road here. a lot of talk during the summit about standing up businesses and supporting entrepreneurships, but what are the models the financial models that those entities are going to be designed by? And is it possible that for example, I'm just going to go way out here, every new enterprise that we build and stand up together includes some way of delivering value back to the customer base or the community base? So with 1 million truths, anybody who shares a truth and submits it to our platform is going to participate in the benefits and the proceeds that we generate through this activity. So we're going to be amounting a ton of data, and we'll have a ton of content that will inspire different storytelling content types, and we'll be able to monetize that. So now we're taking ownership of our stories and our collective experience, creating value out in the marketplace, and sending that value right back to the person who for their individual story or collection of stories that were then utilized in a number of different ways. So how we think about generating financial value and capital value is a whole area of exploration that I think people would be very invigorated by and inspired by. So how do we blow up the models while operating in the current system and within the legal means and the parameters that have been established?
And just to build on that, we actually had a conversation the other night. So I want to come back to that. And we said, I think there were 5 or 6 fundamental things that need to be addressed, pillars, that would that are foundational and would allow us to have this glide path to exactly what you were saying.
Yeah.
So help me, because I'm old.
Financial
Education,
capital, education,
Food
jobs.
security,
Yep, food, health.
jobs, health, and
Innovation.
innovation.
Yep.
All right, so if we just simply said those 5 dimensions or pillars, what could we collectively do to move the needle? Because, and one could argue those might not be the right 5, and that's okay too. But we thought foundationally, if you've got food security, housing security, health needs are being met, education's being met, financial security is being met, and being a part of the innovation that's happening all over the world, we believe that would move the needle.
Most definitely. Thank you guys so much for that. And as we kind of conclude this part of the conversation and open it up, when we were discussing, it was about how do we really think about repair? How do we really connect these conversations so they don't just stay at the conversation space or at the summit space, but we need to have an expectation that next year this time, what is that collective vision? What are each of us doing, holding ourselves accountable? What did I do in my community? Who did I uplift? Who did I inform? Who did I connect with? So we want to have a call to action as well, to say individually, collectively, where would I begin to work on my trauma? How do we not drag in to our next phase? And I think you said this, Aria, the same toxicity and trauma that we've experienced and turn it on ourselves. Because if we don't deal with it, we're going to replicate it. So we want to open the floor for questions before we come to a conclusion of this conversation or sharing. Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I don't think we have a mobile mic, so if you can. Okay.
I just want to applaud you, Mark, for your vulnerability. I think all of us collectively, we're a room of geniuses and extroverts and what have you. And to see you just share your story, what was really in your heart, is something I know that each of us have dealt with at one time or another. I personally, right now, I have a 24-year-old and a 20-year-old thriving in college. Both of them are social justice minded. Both of them are brilliant young people. And there's a part of me every day that I think to myself, what they could be if they didn't have to fight this way.
Come on.
And that is the part where you say the racial healing is so important. My work is rooted in trauma-informed practice to begin with. You can't be trauma-informed without accepting and understanding racial healing is necessary. But I think it's so important for us to recognize that because there's so many people in our community who are walking around traumatized and have generations of trauma on their hips, and they don't recognize that that's what's happening. So the more that we can normalize that conversation around racial healing, the better we will be in a position so that our children and those that come behind us, yes, they're still carrying the burden of trying to beat down structural racism, get to reparations, but at least they know it's not just about them.
Yes.
That there is a part of them that can't be. So thank you.
Thank you so much. Please.
Hi, thank you for this. My name is Anika Goss. I'm from Detroit, Future City, a nonprofit think tank for economic development and environmental sustainability. And I would just build on what Wendy said, that the mental health aspect is maybe one more pillar to your pillar, but also to your five that you're thinking of. But I would also encourage you to think about opportunity as opposed to met. Because I feel like we often think about when we're working in systems, we think about how can people just meet their needs for them to be okay, as opposed to thinking how can we make sure that we are creating opportunities for them to live their highest and best potential. If people who are living in poverty can one day be wealthy, we need to think about what does that look like. And that is probably, I know in my work, trying to live to that and being told on a regular basis that it's not possible is part of that pivot as well. So I would just encourage you.
Thank you so much. And Sandman has appeared here again. Thank you.